Announcements by the Speaker. Bills brought from the Senate. The Law Revision Amendment Bill 2026 in the name of the Minister of Land and Legal Affairs.
Minister of Land and Legal Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order 64-1B, I beg to move that the next stage of the Law Revision Amendment Bill 2026 be taken later in the proceedings.
Honourable members, the question is that the next stage of the Law Revision Amendment Bill 2026 be taken later in the proceedings. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it.
Petitions, papers.
Madam Deputy Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honour to lay the following papers. The 38th Annual Report of the Integrity Commission of Trinidad and Tobago for the year ended December 31st, 2025.
Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honour to lay the following papers. The reports of the Auditor General of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago on the financial statements of the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago for the years ended September 30th, 2022 and 2023. The audited financial statements of the Vehicle Management Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago Limited for the years ended September 30th, 2017 and 2018. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that papers 2 and 3 be referred to the Public Accounts Committee and papers 4 and 5 be referred to the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee.
Honourable members, the question is that papers 2 and 3 be referred to the Public Accounts Committee and papers 4 and 5 be referred to the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it.
Reports from committees, Prime Minister's questions.
Member for Arima.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, to the Honourable Prime Minister, given international reports of a sharp increase in fertilizer prices due to the Middle East conflict, what is the government's plan to insulate the local farming industry and domestic food prices from this inflationary impact?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've been informed by the Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries that ministry is currently monitoring the ongoing situation and working together with the local farming community minister, MP, as well as all stakeholders to mitigate the impact of any price increases.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again to the Honourable Prime Minister. How many persons have been detained under the current state of emergency?
Honourable Prime Minister.
I have been informed, Honourable Speaker, by the Minister of Homeland Security that 373 persons have so far been detained.
Member for Arima.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, to the Honourable Prime Minister, given the government's recent ministerial engagements and foreign trips to the Gulf states, including the United Arab Emirates, to source financing for the Blueprint Investment Plan, how has the current Middle East conflict impacted these arrangements?
Mr. Speaker, our Blueprint Investment Plan, being rolled out especially by the Minister of Works and Infrastructure, has had a tremendous impact. We're being asked now about the impact following what's happening in the Middle East, and so I would be happy to report that the government of Trinidad and Tobago has received 965 expressions of interest for our Blueprint Investment Plan from across the globe, with one of the requirements being the need for the companies themselves who are expressing interest, they must be able to identify capital financing. Further, I've been informed by Minister of Works and Infrastructure that the current situation in the Middle East has not impacted any of these arrangements or expressions of interest to date. None have impacted.
Malaba Mausika.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Honourable Prime Minister, with the full rollout of the digital arrival departure platform just days away, can the Prime Minister assure the public that the cybersecurity infrastructure is robust enough to protect sensitive passenger data from breaches?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I was advised I just say yes. Well, I'll say yes, but also this is a very important initiative, should have been rolled out years, a decade ago. So I'm very happy my government, through Minister of Homeland Security, is now rolling out this package. The answer to your question, sir, is yes.
Urgent questions.
Member for Arima.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, to the Honourable Minister of Education. In the light of the closure of the Arima Boys Government Primary School since Tuesday, March 10, 2026, what immediate action is being taken by the Ministry to ensure that the school resumes operations? Thank you.
Minister of Education.
Thank you for the question, Member. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Education was informed that the Arima Boys Government Primary School experienced an interruption to its potable water supply due to a malfunction in the school's water pump system. The situation was assessed by the officers of the Education Facilities Planning and Programming Division, who confirmed that one pump required replacing while the other required repairs. The matter was logged in the school's infrastructure management system, and arrangements have been made to undertake the necessary repairs. I'm advised that the required works will be carried out on Monday, and the school is expected to reopen on Tuesday once the potable water supply has been restored. In the interim, the Ministry has ensured that all necessary arrangements are in place to facilitate students preparing for the SEA exams, so there will be no disruption in their preparation or examination arrangements. Thank you.
Member of St. Anne's East.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Education, in light of recent reports that ammunition was discovered on the compound of the Destiny Secondary School on Wednesday, March 11, 2026, can the Minister advise what immediate steps are being taken to ensure the safety of students, teachers, and other staff at the school?
Minister of Education.
Mr. Speaker, I've been advised by school officials that immediately upon discovering the items, in accordance with established protocols, 1, the TTPS was contacted and officers attended the school to secure and remove the items. Secondly, the matter was reported through the Ministry's school supervision and safety channels. Thirdly, the Ministry continues to work closely with the police as investigations proceed. Importantly to note, Mr. Speaker, the initial assessment indicated no immediate threat to the safety of students or staff, and teaching and learning activities were not disrupted. The Ministry of Education will continue to monitor the situation and will take any further necessary steps to ensure that Destiny Secondary School remains a safe environment for students, teachers, and staff. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for St. Anne's East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, is there a current investigation going on as to where the ammunition came from?
I think if you look at your question, in the light of the recent reports, and the gravamen of the question is, what immediate steps are being taken to ensure the safety of students, teachers, and other staff at the school? You can ask about the investigation in a different forum or in a different way. Thank you.
Questions on notice? Questions for oral answer?
Leader, Government Business.
Thank you kindly. Thank you kindly, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Minister of Energy has been prepared for weeks to answer these questions. These questions are probably stale dated, but I'm sure the Minister will provide answers.
Huh?
The Minister is prepared to answer all, weeks now.
Questions? Yeah. Member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Before to the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
Minister of Energy.
Mr. Speaker, in response to this question, may I advise the member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, that the answer to this question is already in the public domain, indeed on the Hansard record, on March 6, 2026.
For the viewing members of the population and the public who would like to know the answer, would the Minister of Energy please read the Hansard that he allegedly has?
Mr. Speaker, may I again advise the honourable member that the viewing public, so to speak, has had about 3 opportunities to view the contribution of last week, Friday, the 6th, 2026. It has been aired repeatedly on the Parliament channel and in the media. Thank you very much.
Port of Spain North.
So, Mr. Speaker, is it that the Minister of Energy is refusing to tell the House how many leases and farm-outs Heritage has given to his friend T.N. Ramnath?
I think we can bring this fast developing. Hang on a second, Orpush. I think we can bring this what threatens to be a fast developing charade to an end, okay? Let's look at the standing order. The standing order says this is a question on notice. Member for Orpush, I'd be very grateful if you could pay some attention to this. I'd be very happy. The problem with adopting the position which you have adopted is you have to remember this is a question on notice. If ministers are free to answer the question on notice prior to the 21 days, what happens is it undermines the ability of the House to receive the answers. I'm merely going to ask you if you could simply, if you are inclined to simply repeat the answer which would be on the public record so that we can get on with it. It's a long day ahead, but you see, I think if you adopt that position, what happens is that it undermines the purport of the rule in 28 for questions which notice is required. Because if you look at it in any other way, a minister receiving a question on notice can simply avoid answering the questions by putting the questions out, the answer on the public record. That then undermines the purport of the standing order. So can I just ask you, so that we may save some time, if you may simply wish to repeat the answer which you gave on the answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. At the risk of repeating what is already in the public domain, I have no difficulty with presenting an answer. The member has asked a question. Mr. Speaker, Heritage Petroleum Company Limited has granted one lease operatorship agreement to T.N. Ramnath and Company Limited. Originally, no friend of myself or anyone on this side Mr. Speaker.
I intended to deal with that and ask the member for Port of Spain North to withdraw that part.
Originally granted on April 1st, 1996. Originally granted, April 1st, 1996. Mr. Speaker, I just want to repeat what I said last week, since the member is encouraging me to do so. Mr. Speaker, it was on the 6th of May 2021 that the legal department at the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries presented to the former minister from Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, recommendations for the issuance of lease operatorship agreements. I want to repeat, May 6, 2021, 6 entities were recommended. I will list the 6. Touchstone Exploration, Oil Belt Company Limited, Lease Operators Limited. Is that your friend or family? Lease Operators Limited, I.A.N. Ramnat and Company, Petroleum Contracting Services, and Muncie Oil Company Limited. 6 entities recommended. Mr. Speaker, what did the former minister do? On the 10th, 4 days later, the minister approved 5 out of the 6. Approved 5 out of the 6 4 days later. And stated, and I'm reading from the minute sheet of the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, which I have here. I have executed all sublicense but one. This particular sublicense is of concern to me, and I will conduct inquiries first. This is on the 10th of May 2021. Mr. Speaker, 21 finished. Now, in 4 days, he conducted inquiries on 5. But 1 had inquiries which he has stated he had signed properly. 2021 finished, 2022 finished, 2023 finished, 2024 finished, 2025 began, and the former minister was still conducting inquiries. That is the level of malice and vindictiveness and wickedity. Mr. Speaker, having entered office on the 3rd of May 2025, after 3 months, on the 14th of July 2025, I placed on the minute sheet, I have inquired, approved, Rudolph Munilal. Mr. Speaker, when I asked the legal department whether the minister made any inquiry, raised this matter, the answer was a categorical no. He signed, you had to sign in duplicate. He actually signed one and refused to sign the next one. This is the only sub-license where 2 ministers of energy have signed the same license. And I refused to sign the first one as a brand new print. I said if the minister from Port of Spain North St. Anne's West signed one, and that was good enough, then we signed the second one. That is the status of this matter. And the member should really apologize to the House and the country why he possessed such vindictiveness and malice.
I think you've sufficiently answered. Port of Spain North.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, is the member for Urupuch aware that he, along with I.A.N. Ramnat, are defendants in a corruption matter by...
Not allowed. Not allowed. Question number 45. Member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West.
Mr. Speaker, question number 45 to the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are informed, Mr. Speaker, the total amount of dividends that have been paid since May 1st, 2025 is United States dollars, 50 million United States dollars. The reason for the payment of this dividend was to comply with PPGPL's dividend policy and to safeguard the funds in the accounts of the company from the continuing loss in excess of $1 billion that occurred during the past 4 years. That threat has now been averted by the prudent actions taken by the present board. Payment was made in United States dollars.
Participant North.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, question number 46 to the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
Energy.
Mr. Speaker, in response to question number 46, the total amount of dividends that have been paid since May 1st, 2025 is Trinidad and Tobago $666,965,900. Payment was made in Trinidad and Tobago dollars.
Member for Port of Spain North.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Speaker, when were these payments or this payment made?
Minister of Energy.
Mr. Speaker, if the member would file a question to that effect, we'll be pleased to answer.
Statements by ministers.
I think there are outstanding questions on notice. Leader of the House. Written questions, which...
Honourable Speaker, I'm advised that before the end of today's sitting, the answers to those questions will be circulated to members.
Very much.
Statements by ministers.
Leader of the House.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, by consensus, the opposition has agreed for the Prime Minister to make a statement until her completion beyond the 10 minutes allotted.
Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On March 7, 2026, the President of the USA, President Donald Trump, invited and hosted selected leaders from across the Western Hemisphere. That included Trinidad and Tobago. On that day, we held together from the hemisphere the inaugural Shield of the Americas Summit in Doral, Florida. That was a very historic moment. Trinidad and Tobago stands very proud to be part of a new partnership, the Americas Counter-Cartel Coalition, which is a very strategic alliance designed to confront cartel violence through coordinated security, through coordinated intelligence, sharing, and joint operations across the Americas. Mr. Speaker, for about 1 decade, whilst those on the other side, the PNM, were in government, blood flowed on our streets. That was driven by violent gangs fighting for turf, to sell illegal arms and narcotics trafficked into our country by the drug cartels. Whilst that was happening, many in the PNM hierarchy fattened their pockets from their local drug mafia financiers, while the people of this country, our country, suffered. I say, Honourable Speaker, a short distance away from this building, the new blood-red Balje House stands as a gravestone to drug money, pedophilia, and theft. For almost a decade.
Mr. Speaker, Standing Order 48-4, please.
All right, Prime Minister, can I... All right, Prime Minister, can I ask you to use more neutral language as we move on.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, I did not name anyone. It's a class of persons. If it falls in your garden, in your front yard, so be it. Between 2010, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
She was there, so she would know.
Between 2010 and 2015, 2015 and 2025, do we remember? We need to remember these things. There were 124,062 crimes under your watch. You were there under your watch. This one you could take in your garden. Over 5,000 persons were murdered violently. Over 9,000 were brutally raped or sexually assaulted. And over 11,000 persons were robbed of their hard-earned possessions under that former government. And they did nothing. They did nothing. They did nothing. I think sometimes that they seem to take perverse pride in the fact that P&M strongholds have amongst the highest crime rates, the highest unemployment, the lowest educational attainment, the lowest opportunities, and the worst infrastructure in the country under their watch. And you know, Mr. Speaker, that is why you hear some of them on the other side every day crying. They're like crybabies, crying every day about radars, about U.S. troops, about U.S. lists. I don't really worry, Honorable G, if maybe some of their names on that list. I don't know. I haven't seen the list. Worried about lists, about radar, about the U.S. troops. The PNM, some of them, the local drug mafia financiers, some of them, the pedophile lodge friends, and the fake eater food elite clearly view...
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. 48-4, please.
I don't think it's offensive and insulting directed to a member of the House. It's not directed to a member of the House.
Mr. Speaker, if you are saying that statement is not directed to a member of the House?
There is no member to whom it's directed. It's directed at an entity which
all
members are entitled to. The member for Port of Spain not just asked the member for Oropouche and put it like that. I'm not going to repeat it, but it's not directed at a member of the House.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. You know, Honourable Speaker, the member for Rima and I were in the law class together. So you know how to craft your statements as a good lawyer. I have not named anyone. If you want to take ownership of it, take it. But I have not named any of them. Not one. So today, that is the history, sir, and I'll move on. Today, history is moving forward. I've just set out what we inherited where we came over that almost 1 decade. History today is moving forward. And I stand today to let the people of our country know, you know, they keep saying the Prime Minister must do this. The Prime Minister must do that. The Prime Minister must do this, must. You cannot tell me what I must do. It's only the people of the country. It is only the people of our land. The electorate who put us here. This is our mandate, and I will answer to them, and that's what I'm doing today. I'm answering to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Because this is the people's house. So, today, I want to say to the people of Trinidad and Tobago that our continued partnership with the USA, and now, not just the USA, with partners from across the hemisphere, Latin America, partners from the US and from the Americas, I want to say that this partnership can only augur well for our nation, especially in this very critical area of crime and security. Many people do not yet fully understand the significance of the coalition we have formed in the region. It is a shield. I want to repeat. People think it's an offensive. Yes, it's an offensive against persons who are not law-abiding. But this coalition is a shield for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I repeat, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And so I take this opportunity today to extend my deep gratitude to President Trump for including TNT in this very historic coalition. And this coalition comprises nations across the hemisphere, not just here, across the Western Hemisphere. They include, of course, the host, the USA, of course, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador, Honduras, Panama, and Paraguay. These were the ones who met as selected invitees to the summit held in Doral, Florida recently. Now, I want to make it very clear. You know, we have an expression, no man is an island. And therefore, our crime crisis cannot be solved in isolation, cannot be solved alone. History reflects in the almost decade they were there. They could not solve it. We're alone, and they refused to partner with anyone. They stood alone, and we failed, and our people suffered. Our crime crisis cannot be solved in isolation. It cannot be. And let me tell you why. The dangers posed by illegal drugs, illegal firearms, organized gangs are not only local problems. They're not just a Trinidad and Tobago problem. They are part of a transnational criminal system stretching from South America and throughout the Caribbean right up to North America and also into Europe. So these networks, they move cocaine, they move heroin, they move synthetic drugs, what is called fentanyl, I think. They move them through our waters and ports. And what happens in return? In return, while these are moving, illegal firearms, arms trafficking, illicit money flow back into our communities. Understand this. This is not TNT alone. You want crime plan, you want crime plan. Here's part of the crime plan. You could never do it. We will do it, and we are doing it. For small island states like Trinidad and Tobago, the consequences are exceedingly severe. Across the Caribbean, gangs now operate with sophisticated financing, advanced weapons, and international criminal connections. And so I say again, this is not just a local problem. It is a hemispheric challenge requiring a joint effort, an international response. And that is why, upon assuming office, my government made it very clear that TNT would stand firmly with the USA and our regional partners in targeting narcotics traffickers, arms traffickers, all the other illegal things coming in down into our land. And so we have to dismantle international, transnational criminal networks. Understand that, Mr. Speaker. I ask those who are listening to us, understand this is not a TNT problem. This is a transnational criminal network problem. For decades, Caribbean nations have complained that they are not heard on the global stage. We're too small. We are not heard. This time, we were heard. This time, we were heard. TNT. This time, we were seen. TNT. This time, we were invited to participate. President Trump indicated in his address that U.S. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth established a coalition, this coalition, a pledge from leaders and reps from 70 nations in the Americas, demonstrated that our hemisphere is ready to deal and use hard power to defeat threats to our security and our civilization. These dangers will be addressed using every necessary resource and every legally available authority in the partnership that we form with our allies. The proclamation signed on March 7th makes this very clear, what it is we all agree to, all these nations in the hemisphere. 1, criminal cartels and foreign terrorist organizations in our hemisphere, Western Hemisphere, must be fully dismantled. 2, the USA and its allies, including TNT, will coordinate to deprive these organizations deprive them of financing, resources, and territory, because they come and they build territories in our states and our nations. 3, we will partner nation militaries to be trained and mobilized to dismantle cartel networks and prevent the export of violence. And 4, this hemisphere, we pledge to stand together to keep malign external influences from destabilizing our country and the region. So for TNT, the benefits for Trinidad and Tobago are very substantial. One, stronger intelligence sharing. Cartels operate across borders. They know no borders. They are borderless. And through this coalition that we have formed, law enforcement agencies will share real-time intelligence on trafficking routes, on gang leaders, on financial networks, and weapons shipments. And so with better intelligence sharing, our forces here in security can act faster and more effectively. 2, enhance maritime and border security. We in the Caribbean, we in TNT, we sit along some of the world's busiest drug trafficking corridors. Again, I say, I don't know if people understand. We sit along some of the world's busiest drug trafficking corridors. Through joint operations, surveillance support, and coordinated interdiction efforts, coalition partners, all of us who signed on, can disrupt shipments before they reach our shores. 3, direct support in combating illegal firearms trafficking. We don't make guns here, you know. We make no arms in this country. But then you see these photos of people with huge, long, big, small, every size you can think of. I think some people, maybe not in this house, but there's some persons who have one of each. And some persons actually returned one when they found it was illegal to have it. I think that my fellow was a minister. It was a gift. He had to return it back to law enforcement. I will say no more. That was a very young minister, by the way. So here we go. Direct support in combating firearms trafficking. One of the greatest threats, Mr. Speaker, facing our nations in the Caribbean is the flow of illegal guns. Many firearms used in regional crimes do not come from here. They originate outside the region. Through coordinated enforcement and investigative cooperation, the coalition members, all of us who met and others who want now to join in, they can help stop these weapons before they reach our streets. And 4, training and technology sharing. Training, technology, capacity building. We can help each other in the hemisphere with these matters. So, Mr. Speaker, our police and defense forces will benefit from joint training, advanced technology, and international cooperation. This certainly will strengthen our ability to dismantle gangs, investigate financial crimes, and prosecute organized criminal networks. And so, the coalition that was formed, the America's Counter-Cartel Coalition, now becomes a powerful new instrument in our national security arsenal. Mr. Speaker, I know some of my friends on the other side are very concerned if I met Trump or did not meet Trump. Let me say it very clearly. During the summit, I had the honor of speaking directly with President Trump and thanking him for his support of Trinidad and Tobago and the region. I reaffirm the commitment of Trinidad and Tobago to working together in the interests of the people of TNT and the people of our Western Hemisphere. We also met with the summit's special envoy, Christine Wim, to discuss border security and ongoing cooperation. Let me come now, Mr. Speaker, of the build-up to where we were on the 7th of March, the America's Counter-Cartel Conference. Prior to the summit that I attended, before that, on March 5th, our Minister of Defense, Minister Wayne Sturge, attended the America's Counter-Cartel Conference hosted by the Secretary of War of the U.S., Pete Hegseth, and I commend him for his representation. At that conference, Minister Sturge, on behalf of Trinidad and Tobago, he placed the challenges facing us here in TNT directly on the table. He made it very clear. We are on the front lines of this fight. We need stronger support to disrupt drug cartels, gun running, and so on, narco-trafficking, and to protect our national interests, including our very vital energy sector. Thank you, Mr. Sturge. Thank you. Then, sir, prior to the summit I attended, a joint security declaration was signed by 17 countries from the hemisphere. In that, we reaffirmed our shared commitment to peace, to sovereignty, and stability in the region. I want to repeat, sir, that was a commitment to peace, sovereignty, and stability. I repeat, and some seem to misunderstand, when we partner with people, they think we are giving up our sovereignty. No, we are partnering. It's a partnership, it's a coalition for joint interests and to protect the people of our land. So I repeat, commitment to peace, sovereignty, and stability. TNT's sovereignty remains strong and firmly intact. Our participation in America's Counter-Cartel Coalition reflects our commitment to regional cooperation in tackling transnational crime, whilst at the same time we maintain full control over our national decisions and policy. We maintain that sovereignty. And so sovereignty is never weakened by partnerships, Mr. Speaker. It is strengthened when nations work together to protect their people, to protect borders, and our democratic institutions. That's what it is. It's a partnership. It's not a surrendering of sovereignty. I move further, sir. Any actions undertaken through this collaboration will be guided by law, ensuring the use of force and all operational measures remain lawful and accountable. I have a very good AG on my side. A very good AG. I have many lawyers on our side. We will operate within the rule of law and democratic institutions. So TNT's diplomatic successes continue thereafter the summit on the 7th. At the summit, and that very same day, it was a very long day, sir, I think the agenda changed. First we were invited to come there about midday, then it was changed to come at 7 a.m. and we worked through the whole day and night. And so what we also did in the formal and informal settings there for that whole day, up into the night, we had several bilateral meetings, Mr. Speaker, with senior U.S. officials. I think it's the first time this may have happened. Indeed, I'm told, and maybe those on the other side can correct me, this is the first time in 50 years that a Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago was invited by the President of the United States. So we held bilaterals. All of us, 12, 13 nations, leaders from the free world in our part of in this part of the world, in this hemisphere, we held these bilaterals. And so we met with the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Always a pleasure to meet him, very bright man, very willing to listen to the problems in the region, our region, and in the hemisphere. We met him. And we also met with his Deputy Secretary of State, Christopher Landu, and we discussed further engagement for our region, including, of course, developments involving our neighbor next door, Venezuela. We also met with U.S. Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright, to talk about cooperation in the energy sector, including gas fields, which involve Venezuela, and interests in refinery and tank farm infrastructure. In that meeting with Secretary Wright, it produced almost immediate results. Within hours, energy giant Chevron reached out expressing interest in doing business in Trinidad and Tobago. Within hours. We also had very productive talks with U.S. Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, and we talked about U.S.-based companies interested in here, in Trinidad and Tobago, investment, infrastructure, rehab projects in Trinidad and Tobago. And we also met with the Trade Representative, Jameson Clare, U.S. Trade Representative. And there we talked about tariffs and their potential impact on energy commodities. Not only did we meet all these American counterparts at the highest level, that's the cabinet of the USA, most of them we were able to meet when we were there in Florida. But we also used that opportunity to have bilateral discussions with those other leaders from the hemisphere, Latin America from the Americas, from our hemisphere. We held discussions then also with several Latin American presidents. We spoke with Paraguay's leadership regarding TNT's application to become an associate member in Mercosur. Now, some may know, some may not know. Very important, if we become a partner, there's another partnership, another alliance, strategically, that we have asked to join that grouping, Mercosur, which takes up the Latin American countries. We held talks with leaders from Argentina, from Chile, the Dominican Republic, Panama, and others on trade and national security cooperation. So, in and all, in that one day, it was, we probably held more meetings than we hold in a week here, and they were very successful. I want to thank all those countries who engaged with us. Following on that summit on March 9th, so the summit was on the 7th, you'll ask me about the 8th, I'll tell you about that in a minute. I think one of your members is very interested in Joy's roti shop, so I'll tell you about that in a minute. So let me speak about... what they have with roti? I don't know what is your problem. Oh, they always have a roti issue. You know why? Because it's very delicious. Very delicious. So on March 9th now, so that summit was on the 8th, that was on the 7th. On March 9th, I had the privilege and the honor of being invited by the United States Southern Command, to their base in Florida. So I visited them on the 9th, which was the Monday, I believe, Monday the 9th. I met with Commander General Donovan and his team. And of course, don't get vexed, but I did extend an invitation to Trinidad and Tobago, because we all like everybody to visit our home. So we asked them, please come anytime you're ready, please come. They've been here before. And we asked them, here's an invitation to visit TNT anytime. And I think the General gave an undertaking, I wouldn't say a promise, that they will try before the end of the year to visit us. There, our discussions are focused on strengthening defense cooperation, combating designated terrorist organizations, and drug cartels operating within the Caribbean. Once again, as I said, I used the opportunity, like Minister Sturge did when he made the plea for help for us in this region, and especially here in Trinidad and Tobago. Again, I took that opportunity to make our case directly. Trinidad and Tobago needs greater support in areas such as cybersecurity, forensics, ballistics, and of course, intelligence. And That followed, that was on the 9th. And then we continued. And this is the one I think some members from the other side, maybe not in this house or maybe the other house, had real problems. That I went to Joy's Roti Delight, or they call it Joy's Roti Shop. It's called Joy's Delight, I'm sorry. You know, we should be proud of those people. We should be proud. We should be proud. Did you know that Minister Saddam's mom runs a roti shop? Did you know my mother ran a roti shop? So I'm proud of all the roti makers. And they took real umbrage. They were so angry that we went to Joy's Roti Delight, Joy's Roti Shop, whatever. But I'll tell you, when you go up there, all the diaspora people from TNT, they go there. They're all there. I met hundreds of people there on this diaspora event. And you know, I really didn't intend to spend so much time, but somebody told me last night that somebody from their side quarreling that I went by Joy's Roti. But I will urge any trainee that goes in that part of the world, you should go finish it. You should really go visit Joy's Roti Delight. Because it's not only roti, you know, by the way. They don't only have roti, you know. But you all have a problem with roti, but you'll eat it every day. Let me move on, Mr. Speaker. I drifted a bit. I'll come off, okay? So I went to that diaspora event. It's in Lauderdale, Florida, and I urge anybody visiting that part of the world, please go to Joy's Roti Delight in Lauderdale, Florida. And then they said the government has been run from Joy's Roti Shop. Wow, Joy, you reach far. Sheila, you reach far. I haven't visited there in maybe 2 or 3 years. So whatever lies your narrative are, please change them. But you will not change, you will continue. And whilst I was there, I had the great honor and privilege of meeting Mayor Denise Grant. She was there. She was there. And not only was she liked the roti too. And not only was she there, she issued a proclamation of honor to me. And the proclamation for the mayor there in Lauderdale, whom I've never met before personally, and that proclamation was the name March 8th, Kamla Prasad Bisesa Day. Thank you, Mayor. We might do that later. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much, Mayor. And of course, I also want to thank and honor businesswoman. Now, Joy was her husband's name. He has now passed, God rest his soul, and his wife runs the business. Her name is Sheila Sal, and I want to thank her and her family for opening their doors to us and members of our diaspora, our community. You know, I was shocked, Minister Salam, you're watching me closely because you also go there, don't you, when you get a chance. I was surprised pleasantly at the amount of persons who came for this diaspora event. They played tassa, they played steel pan, they sing, some dance. I didn't, sorry, but Sheila danced, by the way. She did a little something. It was amazing. So I want to thank them all. It was very moving to me and those in the delegation with me to see so many TNT nationals thriving in South Florida there in Lauderdale. We congratulate them all. They've made a new life, but their hearts are still, the liver string is still buried in Trinidad and Tobago. And they tell me, always, that those who eat a cascadura, the legend says, no matter where you may wander, your home is Trinidad and Tobago, you end your days here. And many of them would like to come home. Many are excited about coming home. And I invited them, come, let us build our nation together. Many had fled. Many had left. Many had left. So, and then on my last day there, on my way, leaving, I also took the opportunity to visit our consulate, to thank our very hard-working staff. Why are you looking so worried, ma'am? St. Nancy's looks very worried. I visited the consulate. You know what? You know what, ma'am? Can I tell you? Maybe you don't know. They said the last time a prime minister visited the Trinidad and Tobago consulate in Miami was when I visited them in my first incarnation at Prime Minister. No appreciation. So I expressed, I visited, I thanked that very hard-working staff at the consulate. Not one was picked by me or us in this government. They were all picked under your government. But they said, no Prime Minister.
You don't care for people?
No Prime Minister. The last time a Prime Minister came was when I visited in my first incarnation as Prime Minister. I thank them for their hard work. They represent our country abroad with dedication and pride, and I thank them on your behalf, on my behalf, and the people of TNT. So as I close, Mr. Speaker, this trip was not just a diplomatic visit. It wasn't just go there, shake hands and smile and walk away. You know, it wasn't. It was a strategic victory for Trinidad and Tobago. It was a win for security and safety. It was a win for our economy here, because of the partnerships. It was a win for the future of our nation. TNT's government was present. TNT's government was heard. TNT's government will continue to stand strong in defense of law-abiding citizens. When the UNC wins, law-abiding citizens win. I thank you very much.
One question for the resolution.
24-4. In light of the allegations made, is the Prime Minister aware that the U.S. sought the extradition of 2 UNC operatives because money stolen in the controversial Piarco Airport project was flagged by the DEA as being sent to a drug cartel in Colombia by those UNC operatives?
Honorable Prime Minister.
Much. MP, no, I'm not aware. But you know what? You know what I know? No. What I am aware of is that drug money finance policy law. I am aware. Drug money finance. Can I speak, sir? Can I be allowed to speak?
Yes, can we get some silence? Stop arguing across the corridors, Diego Martin Northeast.
I don't want to see it. You know what I will tell you? I am aware, and we now have lists, remember? Homeland Security have lists. Okay, I'll send you the list. Maybe your name is on list. What I'm aware of is drug money finance Balaji House.
Public Business, Government Business Bills, second reading.
Minister of Land and Legal Affairs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Law Revision Act, Chapter 303, be now read a second time. Mr. Speaker, before I begin, it is my honor and my privilege to stand as a member in this House under the leadership of the member for Siparia, who is taking our country into high places after 10 years of being stagnant under incompetent leadership by my colleagues from the other side. In 10 years, Mr. Speaker, they had 2 prime ministers and nothing to show for that. Nothing to show for that except 5,000 persons being murdered. We now have a prime minister who is taking the leadership in this fight against crime to ensure that Trinidad and Tobago is safe. And while I'm on that point, Mr. Speaker, this bill deals with progressing and modernizing the legal system to ensure that citizens can now have official versions of the law available online so they can know what the law is. This move, Mr. Speaker, comes at a very timely occasion, because as the Minister of Land and Legal Affairs entrusted with the responsibility of the Law Revision Commission, the statutory body with the ability to ensure that Trinidad and Tobago maintains official versions of the law, we are now taking a simple but very progressive step to ensure that the official versions of the laws are made online, and you don't have to have these large bound printed copies of the laws as the only official version. But Mr. Speaker, I want to be absolutely clear. We are not, at this point in time, getting rid of the printed copies. The printed copies will remain as official versions together with the online version. There are particular clauses in the bill. I will address, Mr. Speaker, with this particular procedure in terms of which version of the law will take precedent. Mr. Speaker, the Law Revision Commission, which is established by the Law Revision Act, currently is in the process of revising our laws. And the reason why we are dealing with this exercise is because, one, you have the ability to access laws online. Two, it will now be cheaper for Trinidad and Tobago. And three, modern democracies allow for citizens to have free and available access of the laws. It's a simple, basic principle that any democracy should be based upon, that citizens who are governed by laws must understand the laws that they have to be governed by. So, Mr. Speaker, there are three particular processes in this matter. One, you have the consolidation of the laws. Two, you have the revision of the laws. And then you have three, the supplements of the revised laws. The consolidation takes place on an ongoing basis, Mr. Speaker, and I want to explain this. That when the Parliament passes various pieces of legislation, they can do two things. You can introduce a new Act of Parliament, or you can have an Act of Parliament that amends an existing Act. The Law Revision Commission will consolidate those amendments and place it within the parent Act, and therefore you have consolidated versions. But the difference with the consolidation and the revised law is this. In the revised law, under Section 4 of the Law Revision Commission Act, Mr. Speaker, it is the law being revised at a particular date, which is the revision date, and placed in printed form. There were three revised laws so far based on our Mr. Speaker. We have the 1980 revised laws, and then you have the 2006 revised laws, which was published in 2007. And then you have the supplements of the revised laws. So at the date of revision, you will have further supplements that will come to replace the bound copies of the law. Mr. Speaker, I wish to inform the House of what the cost to the taxpayers of these revised laws are. In 2006, the revised editions of the laws, which was printed in the year 2007, cost the taxpayers $13 million. The first supplement to the 2006 revised edition of the law in 2010 cost the taxpayers $2.8 million. In 2012, we had the second supplement to the 2006 revised edition, which cost $3 million. The third supplement to the 2006 revised laws, which was printed in 2014, cost the taxpayers $1.82 million. The fourth supplement to the 2006 revised edition of the laws, printed in 2015, cost the taxpayers $1.85 million. And the fifth supplement to the 2006 revised edition of the laws, printed in the year 2019, cost $1.9 million. And Mr. Speaker, you being a very trained, celebrated practitioner in the legal framework and profession of Trinidad and Tobago, would understand that these printed versions of the law, you often see them in the red binders in lawyers' chambers, that you have to manually update the laws. So when the revised laws are printed and placed in these binders, and the supplements come, you have to physically take out the pages of the law and replace them with the new pages of the law, which is, at this point in time, with all of this modern technology, should not be happening. So therefore, this particular piece of legislation, Mr. Speaker, will ensure that that does not happen, because you will now have online versions of the law. But this project, Mr. Speaker, started with a UNC government in the period 2010 to 2015. Many of us, Mr. Speaker, many of us use the Digital Legislative Library website to download versions of the law. That, Mr. Speaker, was launched under Prasad Bisesa administration in 2015, in August 2015, for the first time bringing those laws in a modern website. 11 years ago, Mr. Speaker. And what happened then, we are now progressing, because that system would have been outdated and so on because of the passage and the fluxion of time. So, Mr. Speaker, we are currently in the process at the Law Revision Commission, creating consolidated versions of the law, because it is the intention of this government to have a new or revised edition of the law, and that announcement will be made very soon, Mr. Speaker. So we will have these new online versions of the law being placed in a new website and so on. Mr. Speaker, when one looks at the various clauses of the bill, being a very short bill itself, at clause 1 of the bill, which provides for the short title of the bill to amend the Law Revision Act, and the effect of the amendment would be to put in effect the electronic versions of the law on an equal footing as its printed counterpart, would be both official and authoritative. At clause 2 of the bill, Mr. Speaker, we are placing a proclamation clause on the bill, and I would explain why. You see, Mr. Speaker, the bill provides for various security measures and so on that would have to complement the publishing of the official versions of the law. And at this point in time, the Law Revision Commission is in the process of having these systems in place. So therefore, when these security measures and features are placed and confirmed, therefore, there will be a proclamation of the Act, and at that date, it will be the official publication of the online versions of the law. So what we are creating now, Mr. Speaker, is the legislative environment or the framework to ensure that the law revision can complete this new mandate, because this is a new mandate that the Commission is being given. Mr. Speaker, at clause 4 of the bill, clause 4 deals with the amendment to section 2 of the Act in terms of the definition section, where we are now going to include the designated website, which means the website specified in an order made under section 5A(1). And we now have the definition of PDF, as the laws will be published in a PDF format, but when we go on to clause 5, you will see that the minister can create any other format, and this must be done by order. Mr. Speaker, at clause 5 of the bill, the minister by order will designate a website as the sole official website for the publication of electronic versions of the law. At subsection 2, the electronic version of the law that is published on the designated website shall be in the PDF format, or it will be in a format that can be designated by the minister, but it must be done by order, which is approved. Also, the electronic copy or printout of the electronic versions of the law, unless the contrary is proven, be deemed to be the official and authoritative if, 1, the conditions are, if it is accessed or downloaded from the designated website, 2, it is in the PDF format, 3, it meets the prescribed requirements with respect to the manner in which the electronic copy or printout is created, recorded, transmitted, stored, authenticated, received, displayed, or perceived, and 2, any statement, mark, or certification associated with the creation, recording, transmission, storage, authentication, reception, display, or perception of the electronic copy of the printout. All that simply says, Mr. Speaker, there will be a certification mark on the document to determine the printout. Mr. Speaker, currently, you have the judiciary that would issue orders, court orders, in electronic versions. You can have probate grants being issued electronically now. And on the side of the document, on the margins of the document, you would see QR codes, you will see e-verify systems and so on, which will determine the authenticity of that document that is being presented or printed out. And that is a similar model or format which the law revision in this instance and in this particular clause will be empowered to do, to ensure that the laws that are published online will in fact be official and can be authenticated. Because, Mr. Speaker, we all know that there's mischief out there, and we are at this point in time preventing any mischief from occurring. At the new clause 5B, Mr. Speaker, is that this says, on or after coming into operation of the Law Revision Amendment Act 2026, if there's an inconsistency between the laws published under Section 5 and the electronic versions of the law published under 5A, the electronic version of the law shall prevail over the laws published under Section 5 to the extent of the inconsistency. Why, Mr. Speaker? Because the online versions of the law will in fact be a more up-to-date version of the law as compared to the printed counterpart. So therefore, we are using, and the policy direction is that we are using the laws that are more up-to-date as the one that shall prevail. At 5C, Mr. Speaker, the Law Revision Commission has the power to change or correct the law which is already published on the designated website. The Commission shall publish on the designated website a notice of the change or correction. So if any changes or corrections are made to any of the laws, a notice must be placed on the website indicating to the public that this is in fact a correction or an amendment. A change or correction to the law, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, those are the relevant sections of the bill. It's a very short bill, a very progressive bill. But what we have done, Mr. Speaker, is we have learned from other jurisdictions in terms of how they would have managed a similar system. For example, we have countries like Singapore, Canada, and Australia that already have their laws online. And Mr. Speaker, the Parliament, you can find acts of Parliament online, but they are not official. You can in fact you can have a court hearing or court sitting online, but the laws are not being made online in terms of an official copy. And Mr. Speaker, all of us in this Parliament rely heavily on the digital legislative library, but we cannot use it as official versions of the law. So, for example, in Canada, under their Legislation Revision and Consolidation Act 1985, it has allowed for official online versions since 2009 via the Justice website. And most provinces have adopted similar legislation, including the Ontario Legislation Act of 2006. The Department of Justice regularly updates consolidated laws on the Justice Law website, and these online versions are legally authoritative for court purposes. Section 31 of the Legislation Revision and Consolidation Act provides that every copy of a consolidated statute or consolidated regulation published by the minister in either print or electronic form is evidence of that statute or regulation and of its content, and every copy purporting to be published by the minister is deemed to be so published unless the contrary is shown. In Singapore, Mr. Speaker, the revised editions of laws 1983 Act by the Electronic Gazette and Legislation Act No. 5 of 2025 gives authoritative status to electronic versions of revised editions and provides that they are to be judicially recognized. Mr. Speaker, in Australia, the Federal Register of Legislation provides authoritative whole-of-government digital access to Commonwealth laws. Under their Electronic Transactions Act 1999, it ensures that electronic communications and documents are as legally and valid as paper-based versions if the electronic copy is accessed at or downloaded from an approved website in a format prescribed by the rules that is similar to what we are doing in this bill, and two, either the website or electronic copy indicates in a way prescribed by the rules that such a copy is an authorized version. This is in Australia. A printed copy of an electronic version of a revised law or compilation of laws is also recognized as an authorized version of the law if the copy indicates in a way prescribed by the rules that is an authorized version, and that is based on their section 15Z. Mr. Speaker, this particular piece of legislation, in order for it to be a success, there are many moving parts. The Parliament alone is not where legislation starts and ends. It starts, Mr. Speaker, at the stage of sometimes consultation. It goes into policy, from policy into the Cabinet, from the Cabinet into the Office of the Attorney General for drafting, from legislative language into the Parliament for passage. After passage here, Mr. Speaker, it goes to the President's office. From the President's office, it goes to the government printery before it can, in fact, be law. So therefore, we have several moving parts that have to move in synergy before this particular piece of legislation can, in fact, be properly enacted. And that is what we are doing, Mr. Speaker. We are, at this point in time, creating the legislative environment to make this piece of legislation work. And in fact, I heard recently one of my colleagues on the other side complained that they have no consolidated versions of the law and so on, and it's difficult to manage, especially when we are dealing with miscellaneous provisions bill. And even when I was in opposition, Mr. Speaker, I complained bitterly that when you have miscellaneous provisions bill amending other miscellaneous provisions bill, you have to now track language, you have to track various pieces of legislation, and it's sometimes very easy for an error to be made. Even the CPC's department sometimes would pick up errors in terms of typos or cross-referencing errors. Many times it came to this Parliament because it's very difficult to track these amendments and so on. So this, Mr. Speaker, will make the job of all parliamentarians much easier. So I think you all should thank the government for that. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a very progressive move by this government. I am happy to report that this bill was passed in the other place and we received unanimous support for this bill, and I hope that this is in fact the intention of this House also, Mr. Speaker, and I thank you very much. I beg to move.
For the Spain North.
Yeah, after somebody else had to say correct.
Honourable members, I will now propose the question for debate. The question is that a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Law Revision Act, Chapter 303, be now read a second time. For the Spain North.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I sat there and I listened with interest to my friend as he piloted this, and the term that came to mind that is quite a topic right now in the United States is filibustering. Mr. Speaker, this bill is a short one and proposing very progressive amendments to the parent legislation that is the Law Revision Act. And I can say at the outset that as we have always given the commitment on this side, the PNM opposition, we will support progressive law and good law, and today we will do so. But it is necessary to put things in context, as Mr. Speaker is very well aware. As I listened to my friend from Barataria Sawa speak about the red books, some of us practitioners in here would recall the black books that came way before the red books. And the painful exercise as young students. Some of us
recall the brown books too, for the Spain North.
Well, you are aging yourself now, Mr. Speaker. The brown books are the ordinances.
Brown books are the 1950 laws.
Correct. But those we inherited as our ordinances. Mr. Speaker, there were a few, I believe, not intentional, but a few submissions made by the member for Barataria Sawa that may mislead the population. So I'd like to just start with that. what is being proposed here today are specific amendments to the Law Revision Act. When one looks at the Law Revision Act, and carefully, at the start, it is an act to provide for the revision of laws of Trinidad and Tobago and for matters connected therewith. And in particular, laws carries the definition, and it is not being amended here today. Laws means the revised edition of the written laws of Trinidad and Tobago, referred to in Section 4. So it is not that laws that are passed in the House and in the other place and that are assented to, etc., immediate and can just be put up on the official designated website. It still has to go through the process as set out in the Law Revision Act. And in particular, when one looks at Section 4 of that parent legislation, it states, and this has to be followed, the Commission shall prepare, publish, and maintain a revised edition of the written laws of Trinidad and Tobago to be called the Laws of Trinidad and Tobago in accordance with the provisions of this Act. And in particular, what this bill, when one looks at it and puts it into its right context, is about is really fulfilling the legal requirements for the use of online printed versions of the law in the courtroom. And that is why it really is, it talks about that laws now published on the official website shall no longer be subject to, shall be subject to judicial notice and no longer require the court to certify it and for you to walk with a certified copy. But I just caution my friend that in implementing this piece of progressive legislation, you still are required to go through and make sure that you have in place first the hard copy published versions of the amended legislation before you can upload it to become the official law. Another area of concern that we will flag is it does provide that the minister may make regulations prescribing any of the matters in the new subsection 3C of the new 5 big A. And those regulations, it would have been particularly useful for us to have had it before us so we could have looked at it, maybe assisted, especially from a practitioner's point of view, as to some of the safeguards that should be taken into account and put in place. So I'm looking at the new amended 5A, subsection 3. You will see subsection 4 refers to the minister may make regulations prescribing any of the matters in subsection 3C. And 3C is the access to a downloaded from a designated website, that it is in PDF form. I assume that there are other areas of technology, especially that are evolving beyond PDF, but that would suffice for now, and if it needs to be amended in the future, or maybe in considering and drafting the regulations, you can leave it open enough there for other technological advances. Well, correct. So you may do it via order at 5A2. So, Mr. Speaker, another area of concern for us is when one looks at your new proposed 5B. 5B, the new big 5B, on or after coming into operation of the Law Revision Amendment Act 2026, where there is any inconsistency between the laws published under Section 5, which are, of course, the hard print laws, and the electronic version of the laws published under Section 5A, and this is the language that we must be particularly careful about. The electronic version of the laws shall prevail over the laws published under Section 5 to the extent of the inconsistency. And now, Mr. Speaker, in looking at that, I remind of my earlier submission that the laws that will be published online have to have gone through the process to become official law under Section 4 in the first place. So one questions, why is this provision in here in particular? And if it is that there is, in fact, an inconsistency, the dilemma that one will face and can potentially face in litigation before a court. So, for example, if one is relying on the online version on a designated website, and that is incorrect because some error has been made, God forbid it is hacking or whatever it is, but put that aside, that an error is made, as we know happens, very frequently happens here when we are amending laws, that an error is picked up, and that is published now, and that is now the electronic version of the laws. And one goes to court on the basis of that, because not everyone has the privilege and the benefit of sitting as we do in this house, and some in the other place, to know what is the current state of laws and what is being amended. So a practitioner picks up the law, advises the client on the online version, which is actually incorrect, but on an interpretation, a literal interpretation of this new section 5B, that electronic version now will prevail over the published law, and to the extent of the inconsistency. This has very, very far-reaching and dangerous consequences if such an occurrence takes place, Mr. Speaker. And I would ask my friends on the other side to consider that very carefully, because it can lead to litigation against the state. It can also affect in litigation between private parties if a party is relying on an incorrect version of the law, that is the electronic version, and it is inconsistent to the correct version, which is the printed version. How does this apply? How does that work? So I understand why a draftsperson may have thought they're foreseeing a potential difficulty where the online version is advanced because the use of technology, they have literally hustled the process and published it electronically online, which is why I started by saying, but hold on, cautiously, that will not be an official law, because you still have to go through the process to qualify under Section 4 of the Act. So I flag that for my friends on the other side. There's another issue that I believe should be looked at, which is take a look at Section 10 of the parent legislation, the Law Revision Act. And Section 10 says, 10.1, the Commission shall cause a copy of every page authorized to appear in the laws to be delivered as soon as practicable after publication to the AG, the Attorney General, to the Clerk of the House of Representatives, the Clerk of the Senate, to the Registrar of the Supreme Court, to the Government Archivist. How does that now sit as well? I assume that obligation will continue. And what we really have to do is make sure, those in my friend's department have to make sure that the process is almost, if not completely, a simultaneous process. So don't put the cart before the horse. Don't jump ahead. Now, the online version that you're providing for here today certainly makes life a lot easier, a lot simpler, especially when it comes to the consolidation of legislation. However, what you have proposed here today does not remove the obligations of the parent legislation. It doesn't just dispel it. So it is not, one may think that with the passage of this bill here today, once we agree to legislation, and as you use the Miscellaneous Provisions Act, that we have frequently did, one of the last occasions we were here was to deal with FATF, or other occasions we are amending a number of pieces of legislation. That is then done online, and then you can immediately publish it on the website, and that becomes the official law. According to what you've proposed, it is not that simple. You may have to bring further amendments to other areas of the parent legislation if that is what you're trying to achieve. But the usefulness of what is here before us today is once you designate a website, and once you take the corrected, printed, certified laws, of course certified by the Law Revision Commission, that is the body charged with the responsibility to say, right, this is the correct version of law, and you upload that onto the designated website using the amendments that will pass today, that then becomes the law. And I just wanted the opportunity for us to flag that to the government, to take these concerns into account and make sure we don't end up into a situation where we are faced with unnecessary litigation in a litigious society where someone then is challenging. But look, I use the online version. And the online version, according to the new subsection 5B, the electronic version takes precedent. And it is clear on the face of it that that is not the correct version of the law because it hasn't gone through the certification process, etc. Mr. Speaker, as I said at the outset, the commitment was given from day one by the Leader of the Opposition, and we are reminded of it consistently, that this PNM opposition will support good law and progressive law. Not in shallow or hollow words, as we used to hear all of the time, unfortunately, by the other side, just as a catchphrase. I raised those concerns, and in particular, the last part of the new section 5B, that the electronic version of the laws shall prevail over the laws published under section 5 to the extent of the inconsistency. Because I can certainly see on an interpretation summons that will present particular difficulty as to how does that work when you consider the wholeness of the parent legislation, the Law Revision Act. So, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the opposition, those are contributions to this bill here today.
Thank
you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I think this may be our shortest debate. But, Mr. Speaker, I took notice of some of the points my colleague from Port of Spain North, Sentence West would have made. Some of the submissions that he would have made would be helpful, and some may not be so helpful. So I intend to address each and every one of his submissions, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the first point that my colleague raised is that we must go through the process as outlined in the Law Revision Act. And my friend would have taken us to Section 4 of the Law Revision Act. And Section 4, for the record, says that the Commission shall prepare, so it's mandatory, publish, and maintain a revised edition of the written laws of Trinidad and Tobago to be called the laws of Trinidad and Tobago in accordance with the provisions of this Act. And then, Mr. Speaker, the Act goes on to explain the form of the publication in terms of inclusion or removal of pages and so on. Then it goes on to talk about the revision date and the special revision date. And I'm stopping at those particular provisions because those are what I will use to respond to my friend. If one looks at Section 5 of the Parent Act, it says this, that the laws shall be published in loose leaf form or in such other form as the Commission may determine, and shall comprise such pages as may be authorized to be included therein under Section 6, and Section 6 deals with the inclusion or removal of pages to be authorized by order. Now, Mr. Speaker, the reason I raise this point is that when you look at the language of Section 5, it gives you two options. The Law Revision shall publish in loose leaf form or in such other form as the Commission may determine. Now, we looked at this, Mr. Speaker, very closely and thought, well, this could in fact mean electronic versions also. But when one goes to Section 15 of the Act, what 15 says, this deals with laws of Trinidad and Tobago, which are constituted in the statute book. Section 15 of the Act says that subject to Sections 14 and 17, the pages duly authorized for inclusion in the laws shall in all courts and for all purposes be the proper statute book of Trinidad and Tobago in respect of the written laws contained therein as in operation on the last revision date and all such written laws shall be judicially noticed. With the use of that language there, Mr. Speaker, we believe that we had to come to this Parliament in order to be very clear in our intention to say that it will be electronic versions of the law. What we are doing, Mr. Speaker, is that it's not a shortcutting of the entire process. If you realize, when you look at the language of the bill, we are keeping all of the existing processes when it comes to the printed law, and the official versions of the law will now be made in another format, which is the online version of the law. So I can tell my friend on his first submission that we will go through all of the processes of the law. However, we now need to connect everybody, because we have to connect the CPC's department, we have to connect the Parliament, you have to connect the President's House, you have to connect the Government Printry, and also the Law Revision Commission when you are going to publish. And I would imagine, and my friend may be familiar, when you download certain laws, for example, on the UK website, there will be a disclaimer to say that this is the law at this date. So my friend raised a concern that we can be open to litigation. But with the inclusion of those disclaimers, Mr. Speaker, which will in fact come within the regulations, as my friend outlined, that the minister has the power to make, those particular matters will be addressed then in terms of the disclaimer to prevent the state from any unnecessary litigation. And Mr. Speaker, that is something that we have looked at, this being a very responsible government. Mr. Speaker, my friend also raised an issue with respect to regulations, right, the creation of the regulations as outlined in new 5 capital A 4, where the minister may make regulations prescribing any of the matters in subsection 3C. And 3C would have been dealing with, Mr. Speaker, the printout of the electronic versions of the law and the authentication of it, and also the certification of it. And my friend said it would have been very helpful if the draft could have been provided to the Parliament and so on. What I can say is, because of the technology and the evolving matters in terms of testing and so on, those particular matters, Mr. Speaker, will in fact inform the final version of the regulations in terms of the publication and printout of the law. I can tell my friend it's not new. As he's well aware, as I outlined when I was piloting the bill, the judiciary has a way of authenticating their documents. And we have looked at what the judiciary has done, being the Law Revision Commission, and in terms of the testing and so on, of similar type technology. And I have, in fact, received some complaints that maybe the Digital Legislative Library website may not be so user-friendly. We intend to make this new website here very much user-friendly, because we understand that not only practitioners use it or parliamentarians or researchers, but general members of the public should be able to go onto the website and be guided very easily with respect to the laws. I remember, Mr. Speaker, a proposal came whether or not we should include AI into the website, and I was very hesitant to say that we can incorporate it, because that may open us up to litigation. Because some member of the public might just prompt a response and say, what is the law on an assault? And it gives all sorts of answers, or what is the law, or what's the process for registering a deed of conveyance or a deed of gift or so on. And if the wrong answer is generated by the official website designated by the minister, it opens up the state to enormous amount of litigation. So we are very hesitant to include an AI component to the new website that we are going to designate as the official website that will house the official versions of the law. Another important point my friend raised, and he described it as a dangerous matter, is with respect to clause 5 capital B, which deals with the official versions of the law and which version shall prevail. Now, we indicated, Mr. Speaker, that the electronic version of the law will prevail over the printed version of the law. We believe that the electronic version will be a more up-to-date version, and let me explain. Because when you deal with the printed version of the law, first you have to go by order and have a new revision date, and then you have to have the supplements before you can have the printed official versions. And the last supplement that was printed would have been made in 2019. The last supplement to the revised laws of 2006. So therefore, we will be in a situation where you will now have to continuously be making revised editions of the printed laws, which will increase the cost of printing and so on. And then, as I explained earlier, the manual replacing of the loose leaf of the binders and so on. So I've noted my friend's concern, but we are comfortable on this side, Mr. Speaker, because other jurisdictions would have done similar type law in terms of having the online version, being the more up-to-date version, prevail over the written versions of the law. And the last point my friend made was with respect to Section 10 of the Act. And Section 10 of the Act says that the Commission shall cause a copy of every page authorized to appear in the laws to be delivered as soon as practicably after publication to the Attorney General, to the Clerk of the House, to the Clerk of the Senate, to the Registrar of the Supreme Court, and to the Government Archivist. So, of course, these versions of the law will appear online. They will be made available to all of these offices. That's the first point. And secondly, if we are doing the printed versions of the law to keep up to date with the official online versions of the law, we are mandated by Section 10 to do this. But my friend made an intelligent contribution on this particular point as compared to his counterpart in the Senate. Now, Senator Al-Rawi,
we know why.
Senator Al-Rawi made a most incredible submission where he said that, Mr. Speaker, if we don't amend this section, that the state will be open to liability and they will file a judicial review action against you and they will get a mandamus against the Law Revision Commission to ensure that we do this. No, Mr. Speaker, I was appalled at that submission, and I'm happy my friend from Port of Spain North, who is a much better attorney than the former Member of Parliament for San Fernando West is, to make a much more intelligent submission on this point, Mr. Speaker.
In the Senate.
And he took 45 minutes to say absolutely nothing, Mr. Speaker. When I heard the submission of my friend, that I thought he changed his mind in terms of supporting the legislation. But I am very comforted, Mr. Speaker, that in fact, as I said before, that whatever is the existing obligations as according with the written law as is will remain, but now the electronic version will operate in a concurrent manner with the printed versions of the law. So it's a very simple matter that we are dealing with here today, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Cabinet for approving this particular matter and for having this particular piece of law drafted in a very expeditious manner by the Office of the Attorney General and brought here for the attention of this House and passage. I beg to move, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, the question is that a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Law Revision Act, Chapter 303, be read a second time. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it.
A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Law Revision Act, Chapter 303.
Minister of Land and Legal Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order 68-1, I beg to move that the Law Revision Amendment Bill 2026 be committed to the Committee of the Whole to be considered clause by clause.
Honourable members, the question is that the Law Revision Amendment Bill 2026 be committed to the Committee of the Whole to be considered clause by clause. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. This House shall now go into the Committee of the Whole to consider the bill clause by clause. A recess for 5 minutes. Right. I understand that there are proposed amendments which have not been circulated. Are there substantial amendments, Minister? No, I'm told that they are not substantial amendments. What I propose to do is to suspend and return at 3:30, if that is convenient for everyone. Thank you. When we will go back in